You're listening to You're listening to Within Tolerance, a podcast for machinists by a machinist. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson from Protea Machining, and this week I'm joined by Josh Firman of Firmworx. Welcome, Josh.
Hello, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining me. So for those who don't follow you on Instagram or know of your stuff, what is Firmworx? What do you guys do? Where are you located? All that good stuff.
So we're coming from England in the United Kingdom, and Firmworx is just basically a job shop, subcontract manufacturer doing CNC machining.
Awesome. And then you also have your own product line that you're starting as well, right?
Yeah, it's sort of in still very early doors on some of the products we're trying to bring out, but yeah, Vice and some 0 point in the works as well.
That's excellent. Well, let's get into your backstory then. How did you get to own your own shop, and how did you get to where you are now?
So I had an engineering apprenticeship way back when, about 9 years ago. It was at the Medical Research Council Laboratory of Molecular Biology, which is quite a mouthful. But this place is basically a medical research lab. It was actually where they discovered the structure of DNA back in the 60s. But when I started there, they'd just moved into a brand new building, had a nice clean workshop that you could eat your dinner off the floors if you wanted to. So I was quite spoiled with my introduction into machining. So I was there as a mechanical engineer. Basically, we assisted the research staff on all their random different projects. We can get into a few of them later on if you like. But then, I was there for 3 years. I completed my apprenticeship and then moved on to a more local place to me, doing just production machinist, which was quite good. So it was a bit like going into the real world, really, because being in sort of a research place, it was very much it gets done when it's done, make sure it's right, this, that, and the other. But going into the production place was, get these parts done yesterday. No, we're not buying the right tools. No, we'll just get on with it, get it done.
Right, you got to make do. You got to make those customer demands, all that stuff.
Yeah, and now being on my own, I was annoyed at the time, but I understand it now that you can't always order the best of everything just because you fancy it. So
yeah, and then you went full time at your shop just over a year, or just under a year now.
It's about 10 months in full time. I was part time with my last job for about just over a year and a bit. So just Firmworx as it was started as an entity with my own machinery and that. It's just over 2 years now. So it was in May of 2020 when I took the plunge and started off.
What a time to start a business as well.
It was crazy, yeah. So I was working at the Whittle Laboratory in aerospace research there, but when we had some serious lockdowns in England, as sort of everyone did all over, but I was off work, fully paid for about 6 months. And before that, I was using the workshop to sort of do a few bits on the side, we call it homework over here. And I built up a little bit of a customer base. And then when the lockdown started and we weren't allowed I wasn't allowed anywhere near the workshop for actual work, let alone my own stuff. So after a couple of months of sitting around and spending some time with the family, I started looking at buying a machine basically, and that's when I bought my first one.
So let's get into what machinery you have and what capabilities you have in the shop.
Yeah, so I started off, that first machine was a Mini Mill 560, which is not very similar to the Haas Mini Mill, although sort of similar size, but it's full boxways machine. It's got 12,000 RPM spindle and Siemens control, which is my favorite of the controls. And then, so that was my first machine. And then a little while after that, I thought everything I was going to be doing was milling. And then pretty much every other job was coming to get quoted on needed some turning. So then I got a proto track lathe. So no tool changer. It was just a 2-axis CNC machine at CNC lathe, which was a bit of a mistake to buy that machine, to be honest with you. It was cheap fairly cheap at the time, but during the lockdown, no one was selling machines. It was the only thing I could really find within my budget. So that ended up getting sold, and I replaced the Prototrack lathe with probably my favorite machine at the moment is my 1990 Hitachi Seiki. Is it High-Tech Turn 20S2, which is a 2-axis CNC lathe with a Yaznak control on there. It's a bit of a strange setup on that machine. The the x-axis is actually vertical up and down rather than a slant bed. Rather than it being like on the lathe before that, it was forward and backwards like a manual lathe. And then on the latest machine, I've just got a Colchester 350, and it's like 45 degree slanted ways on the x-axis. But it's a beast. It's a Hitachi. It really. The other week, so about 2 weeks ago now, I basically let it self-destruct. I had a big lump of EN24T steel, 140 millimeter diameter by 140 millimeters long, launch out of the chuck.
Oh,
destroyed my hydraulic chuck and destroyed the window. And that was a bit of a brown pants moment, shall we say, to keep it.
I bet. Yeah. Were you right in front of it?
I actually wasn't. I was over at one of my other machines when it happened, but it was sort of all over before I even got there. I mean, even if I'd have V-stopped it, it was already been too late. So yeah, that was a bit of a nightmare. Ended up having to get a new. I had an 8-inch chuck on there, sort of a Japanese one, and then one of my buddies, shout out to Will Bullock, he sold me one from his old Akuma, which he had sitting around. But that was a 10-inch chuck, and got that on there now. It's a bit bigger, which means this doesn't clear the turret quite as well, but it got me back up and running, which is the main thing.
Definitely. So is it everything else all right with the machine? It was just the chuck?
I had to realign the turret, which, to be honest with you, it had a few minor knocks before that. Yeah, I'm not too kind on my machines.
Well, it sounds like, as bad as it could have been, it was I won't say mild because you destructed a chuck, but at least it could have gone way worse from what I've seen. It could have been
100%. Yeah, my customer, they've got one of my customers got a Doosan lathe, and one of the operators destroyed the entire spindle. It was something like £20,000 to replace, and it was offline for about 8 weeks. So,
oof.
If that had happened to me, that would have been game over.
Right. So, talk to me about buying machinery in the pandemic and getting it rigged in and all of that, because I imagine, just getting riggers and things like that was kind of a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never bought a machine before, not for myself. I'd been part of the process of buying a brand new machine at the Whittle lab, but yeah, so I didn't really know what I was doing, which is probably, I think, naivety sort of done me well, because if I'd have looked at doing it all on paper, it probably would have scared me off, but there we go. So it weren't too bad. Everyone was wearing masks, and I went to look at a couple of places. I mean, you weren't allowed to go anywhere. I got stopped actually a couple of times going to and from work by the police, questioning where you're going and what you're doing. So I went down to a couple of machinery dealers. They were obviously still trying to keep going and deemed essential for manufacturing. So yeah, I went down to one place and looked at a couple of machines there, and there was nothing that I've really. It was actually a robo drill and a hard inch machine. So I nearly became part of the BT30 club. But no, it wasn't too bad. I mean, the machine I went and looked at was more of a private. He was a dealer, but he wasn't it was a bit more. When I turned up, it was a sort of small, well, quite large unit full of fairly old machines. This guy was sort of winding down his business. But yeah, when it comes to buying a machine, I went and looked at it, and it was absolutely fine. I was happy with it. I've ran the Mini Mill 560 before, so it was good idea, I think, to get something I was familiar with. And then, yeah, with rigging, the seller actually sorted it out. So he had a driver that just basically brought it to me. And then, one of the questions, do I know how to use a tape measure? Getting a machine in the door was a challenge. I had to I measured it up, and I thought it would fit, which I've done with all 5 purchases so far, and didn't fit. Luckily, where I'm sort of in a unit, which you can see where I am at the minute, but I'm underneath a mezzanine, and I'm sort of shared at the moment. So it's a bigger unit, and there's a mezzanine, and my bit is just under the mezzanine. So there's 2 like wooden doors and a wooden wall sort of partition, which all had to come down.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I was wondering why that question from Alex Bellringer on the Patreon, I was like, well, what does that mean? I must have missed your stories on it or something, because I was like, what do you mean? Does he know how to use a tape measure? That makes more sense now.
Yeah. So I use a guy now, Edwards, who was recommended, I think, from Alex Bellringer. He recommended Edwards to me, and he's moved all my machines after that. He's a good old boy. But yeah, every time he turns up and he goes, will it fit? And I go, yeah, I measured it should fit. He goes, it's not going to fit.
Oh, that's great. Well, before we get on to too many of the questions, you said you had some cool projects that you'd worked on in your apprenticeship. Let's go back to those days. And, what kind of projects were you working on in a research setting?
It was, to be honest with you, it was sometimes you'd be drilling and installing a bracket on a wall or something like that. Or a lot of the stuff was actually electron microscopy. So you'd be making different stages and attachment for them to put their like glass dishes and stuff like that. A couple of the cool projects was one was it's called a freeze plunger. And there's these imagine a 3mm copper disc, but it's actually a mesh, and that's held in some like Swiss-made tweezers, and they put their sample on the copper disc, and then this basically contraption, which I didn't design this one, but I designed some add-ons for it. But the process is called vitrification, and basically they plunge it into liquid nitrogen to freeze it, and that basically prepares the sample to then go onto the microscopes, electron beam microscopes. So that was quite cool. I made the way it worked was like a sort of a shaft that goes up that's got like a ratchet system on it, and then pull the sort of Bowden cable, little trigger thing, and then it releases it. But what they wanted to do was clean the apparatus with like an air blast between each use when they were doing it, sort of, I guess, in a bit of a production setup as what we would think it is. But yeah, when they keep loading them. So where the tweezers were pulled up into the sort of home position, there was two like air nozzles pointing at the tweezers at the sample. And the bit I designed on that was sort of the mechanism. So as it went, it had to clear out the way for when it dropped, but when it was pushed up to home, it had to sort of pull it back into place. And then, they'd do the air blast and then they'd release it. So that was quite cool.
That sounds really cool. So did you design it kind of like a wine cork opener, with arms?
That is exactly it. Yeah. So my boss sort of gave me he sort of planted the seed for me. And back then I wasn't allowed to use CAN or CAD really. I did have a 2D, it was feature CAN, but it was a 2D version. It was from like 2002 or something.
Oh.
So yeah, when I started my apprenticeship, for the first, I think, year and a half, I had to hand draw all my drawings. Okay, shaking your head, I know.
Yeah, they made you work for that.
They did indeed. Yeah, I had to start off. Yeah, day one of the apprenticeship was how to use a hacksaw. Day two was how to use a file, and then you had to do all the manual machines, and then eventually got onto the CNC. But I mean, to be honest with you, but when I got into engineering, I didn't have any. I'd been into jet skis and working on that, but sort of spannering, that sort of thing, but never anything as technical. I've really had no idea what I was getting in for when I started this whole thing, but I do absolutely love it.
So how does that, I don't quite know how the school system works there. Like, was that straight out of school that you went into an internship, or were you already going
No.
Like, how does that all work?
So a lot of people, I mean, there's two routes you can take really. You could do school and then go to college, or you can go to do your A levels and then go off to university. I didn't quite have the grades to go to university, and that didn't really interest me either. Didn't like the idea of getting loads of debt, and then, from what I was hearing at the time, it's got even worse now. You'd go and get your degree and then not even be able to get a job. So that's the route some people take. But I originally wanted to go into, my family business was working as a market trader, selling fruit and veg. So wow. I did that from the age of like, I don't know, 10, 11 until I was about 18. Yeah. So when I was working at in the research lab there, I was obviously on an apprentice wage, but then on a Saturday I'd go and sell fruit and veg on the market stall still. But yeah, no. So I didn't start my apprenticeship until I was 18. So while I was working on a fruit and veg store, I started off applying for IT apprenticeships, and because I was at the time, I was definitely sort of 16. I was addicted to gaming, hardcore PC gaming. I had no social life. That was all I did. And then, didn't get a look in really for any of the IT apprenticeships. Oh yeah, I forgot. So I'd come out of school and done a year at college doing an IT qualification, which was meant to be 2 years. And then I stopped after the first year because I realised that it's not really, I mean, this is not World of Warcraft. This isn't what, is not what I wanted to be doing. And then, I started applying for apprenticeships pretty randomly, really. What sparked me to look at engineering was on one of the jet ski part sort of websites. There's a guy in the UK, he sort of CNC machines parts. And I saw that and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And then, that was sort of what sparked me to go on to apply for some engineering apprenticeships. And then I got an interview, which was one place, which was Carl Zeiss Microscopes.
Oh,
in
really?
Cambridge. Yeah, I got through. There was literally it started off about 30 of us. It was like a TV show, really. It was crazy. So it was like stage 1, we had to pass all these tests, and then I got through to like the last 8, I think, and then didn't go no further. And then I had an interview at the MRC, the research lab, and I went there for an interview. I can remember it quite well, actually. One of the sort of tests they did was, here's a small toolmaker's vise that had been disassembled, and there was some instructions, and it was basically assemble it. And sort of being nervous and young and naive, I looked at it, didn't look at the instructions, I just started bolting stuff together. And so I've sort of I did all right in the interview, sort of answering the questions and that. I think having my interest in jet skiing sort of put me in good standing, as it were. But they originally offered the apprenticeship to someone else, and then he actually accepted it, then declined. And then one day I was working on the market stall, and I got a phone call. It was would like to offer you the job. So I can remember actually hadn't even hung up the phone yet, given it a woohoo, and then hung up. And then on my first day, my boss was like, "Yeah, I heard you," giving a whoop whoop, just quite funny.
That's great. So then the production shop you went to, what kind of work was that? And, what did you learn? What kind of machines did you work on there?
So there they do a sort of theatre automation. So in like the London West End, a lot of the shows there. I mean, one of them they did was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and there's a part where the car sort of goes over the crowd, and there's like a full size car that gets like flown over the crowd, and they make all the framework and sort of the automation behind that. It's very similar to what Brandon at Machine Shop Outlaw does.
To say that, yeah.
Yeah, he likes chatting to me, and I like chatting to him on the Insta. I think as we all do, we comment on each other's stuff.
That's really cool. And then what kind of machinery did you guys have there?
Well, when I worked there, it was, so picture this, a big warehouse full of people doing MIG welding and grinding all day, every day. So it's like dust everywhere. And then at the back in the corner was the machine shop. It's not like that now. They've moved into a new facility and got all new sort of Doosan's and still some of the older machines. But yeah, they're sort of running production. There was a Conquest, a Hardinge Conquest. They had a big, fair-sized mill, 3-axis, which they did have a Nikon 4th-axis for. And then the rest was these 3-axis bed mills. So no tool changer, but they were used for one of the jobs I did was like a 4-meter long beam, and you had to drill holes every 200 millimeters. So you'd drill 5, they had 1.5 meter travel or 2 meter travel, something like that. And you'd drill a few, slide it along, drill a few more. And then they also had, which is what I was on mostly, was some 2-axis prototrack lathes, quite fair sized ones. One of them, 425, did have a 4-position tool changer on it, but not like a turret. It was like, imagine a manual tool post on a manual lathe, and it literally just rotated 90 degrees automatically.
Right.
So you think if you had a boring bar in there sticking up 200 millimeters, because it was quite large stuff. So what's that in American? That's 8 inch or so. That thing would be rotating 90 degrees. So when you had your turning tool on the other side, it would be like hitting into the back of the garden. It was quite a bit of a nightmare, really. But I learnt a lot there. I hadn't done much turning until I went there, and learnt things like doing a part in turning the front and sort of chamfering the back of the bore with an ID grooving tool, sort of chamfering your part off before you part it off. So just sort of saving operations and stuff like that.
Great. And then, so I saw on your Instagram at some point one of your jobs got what was it, like a DMU ultrasonic? Was that your next job?
Yeah, so that was where I spent the last, 2 years ago now, the last 4 years. So managed to get a job as a chief technician at the Whittle Laboratory, which is where the jet engine was invented back in the day by Frank Whittle. Yeah, so that was a really, really cool job. So the setup is basically it's another research lab, but for aerospace research, doing stuff for sort of Rolls-Royce, Siemens, Mitsubishi, and sort of some other random stuff as well. Like they did some stuff for the Olympics cycling team. They did some I didn't have anything to do with this one, but they machined a leg, like a sort of it was like the bottom half of a leg, and then they put that in a wind tunnel, and they were testing like the aerodynamic effect of it's a bit silly, isn't it? But that place was pretty cool. They had a few manual machines, and also that was where we got XYZ 750 LR, sort of the new, when I was sort of involved in deciding a new machine to buy. We got that, but also had the same machine as what I've got now, the XYZ Mini Mill 560, but it had a Nikon trunnion on it, a 5-axis trunnion. So that was when my first step into 5-axis, which was quite cool. With machines sort of aerospace blades, sort of turbine blades, fan blades, all kinds of cool stuff on there. And then, sort of in I guess about a year before I left, Siemens gave us, they actually gave us the DMU 85 ultrasonic, which is just an absolute beast. So I got to play with that a little bit before I left, got to run a few parts on there and sort of help implement the thing. And that was when we looked into getting, so I'm a big Fusion fanboy. It's sort of a love-hate relationship, actually, to be honest with you, like most people, I think. But yeah, we started looking into Hypermill and not Camplete. I can't remember the name of it now off the top of my head.
Vericut?
Yes, Vericut, that's the one, yes. So Vericut and Hypermill. Because, oh, here's a bit of a story on the DMU. So, new machine. Well, it was 2 years old when it came to us. It's got it's an 850 millimeter table on there, so it's a giant thing, and it moves quicker than any machine I've ever run as well. But it's got a 48,000 RPM spindle on there, a 63E. But yeah, so I hadn't run. I mean, there was me and another guy, Ollie. Shout out to Watson Engineering, another UK machinist. Well, it wasn't him actually who was running it. It was one of the academics, Alejandro, machining this beautiful fan blade. This thing was, it was like 1.5 millimeters thick, like twisted round, like. So I know this is audio, so people won't be able to see it, but yeah, it was a really twisted shape of a fan blade, basically. And the way they were machining it, because Fusion wasn't giving us smooth enough code. He is a genius, James Taylor. He basically used MATLAB to write a script which took the actual points of the CAD. So it wasn't looking at the CAD, it was looking at like the raw data from their CFD and making a 5-axis fully simultaneous, both roughing and finishing toolpath, which was, absolutely amazing, really good, until the guy, and one of the academics who was running it, he's never really run machines before. So, so you can see where this is going.
Yeah, I'm already braced.
Yeah, he was pasting together some codes, and he deleted one of the lines, which was the retract move.
Oh no.
And he basically plunged the entire spindle into the block and basically snapped the spindle pretty much. Oh. So this was of course, it's on a Friday afternoon, literally just about to go home. It was me, Ollie, that's Watson Engineering, and Alejandro, the guy still there, and heard this almighty bang. And I was like, oh, that sounds like it come from the DMG. Ugh. So I wander over and have a look, and there it is. You see the tool holder was like, you never want to see this. The spindle's there, and the tool is like at a 30-degree angle, but still clamped in the spindle.
Oh,
and
jeez.
There was oil coming out of the spindle. But obviously the machine went into sort of e-stop state, and because it had sort of stopped itself at a certain point, but obviously not quick enough. So we were like, what do? We can't really leave it like this. So, because obviously oil's still coming out, we need to sort of, to be able to just sort of, what I was worried about was everything was under tension, like the trunnion, the spindle head, like everything. I was like, I don't want to do like permanent damage. Any more permanent damage has already been done. So out comes the angle grinder.
Oh no!
Out comes the angle grinder, and not just a small angle grinder. It was a big ass angle grinder. It's like an 8-inch one, and there's Ollie's angle grinding it while I'm holding a bit of rag behind the spindle, to sort of catch the sparks to stop them from sort of going. We're worried about it going in, sort of just damaging everything else, and going back up the spindle as well. Because we're like, it might still be all right. You don't know. It might just be like the clamping mechanism broke or something like that. Then the bloody thing set on fire.
No.
Oh dear. Yeah, I've not really told this story publicly.
So it went from really bad to way worse, super quickly.
Way worse. But yeah, so we got it cut out and then managed to move. It sort of released the tension and everything, it was on the Lang 0 point, so we sort of undone the 0 point and moved it all out of the way. And then, so that it's basically £1,000 for every RPM of the spindle. So it was something like, including labour, and a refurbished spindle was about £60,000. Yeah. So
I mean, I guess they must be really glad they got that machine for free then, because
totally, yeah. Imagine if you just paid like €1 million or whatever it was new, and then you'd done that. So that, I mean, the sort of technicians had said people who aren't trained shouldn't be using the machine anyway. But that's it.
Well, and
So,
hand editing code on a full 5-axis toolpath and then not simulating it or anything, like that's a recipe for disaster right there.
Oh, definitely. So so we got very cut and hypermill, and that was literally just as I left to go full time was when Ollie was just getting that implemented. So I spoke to him since and said, have they been running any more MATLAB code without verifying it? He's like, yep. Like, guys, let's learn from our mistakes here.
That's crazy. It's like that's a $60,000 error, like they're £60,000, so it's even more than that in dollars. That's bananas. So
hypermill itself is obviously it's expensive, and Vericut wasn't actually as expensive as we first thought. We got an educational license for that, sort of educational / research, because there are students that are working in that place. But hypermill itself, I mean, it was like, I think it was 25-30 grand or something like that, but I mean, that's two spindles. No, sorry, two hypermill licenses is one spindle. So
right, yeah. Oh, that's nuts. Well, let's get into some of these questions. Both Brandon, Machine Shop Outlaw, and Mr. Horrocks asked, "Where's that MTH barbecue vest?"
The vest, yeah. I think I might have outdone Ratworks engineering here and held it for maybe as long as he did. But no, so it's been boxed up and sent to. It's going on to UK Machinist. You may well follow him. But I sent it, and then it got sent back to the place I sent it from. So it's currently sitting at my local convenience store, waiting for me to go and resend it.
Oh,
so I don't know. They didn't say any reason why on there, but I suspect it might have been over the weight that I said it was, or something like that. So,
that's frustrating.
Yeah, so that'll be getting moved. It will eventually get to UK Machinist, and then I don't know who else it will go on to. When's IMTS?
September.
Oh, September. So there's a little bit of time. Bit of time to get it to a few more people. Yeah, I think it should get back stateside.
At this point, it's probably almost too heavy to wear anymore. So I look forward to seeing the state it's in at IMTS.
Yeah, when I was wearing it, it was like weighing me down, putting me down. So it's quite cool. It's good fun.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Brandon also asked, "How much do you hate your Freddy?" And I'm guessing not at all. It seems like you get to use it all the time.
I absolutely love the Freddy. Yeah, so that was I actually won the Freddy in an Instagram competition run by CNC machinist Tom and Freddie. I think it was his 3,000 followers giveaway. Freddie has been a great company. Simon there's great team there, but they've given quite a few machines in giveaways, which I think is amazing to sort of give back to the community, especially in the UK. I mean, you guys in what it seems over here, there's lots of stuff going on sort of as instant machinist in the US, but over here it's not. I mean, I feel like the UK sort of machining scene is quite dated compared to the US. But yeah, no, Freddie is an absolute game changer. I think you've considered getting one before, haven't you?
Yeah, I've talked to Simon a bit, and I haven't quite pulled the trigger yet. Like right now, we're in a stage where that money is probably better spent on things that will like speed us up getting orders out to customers. But man, it'd be so nice because every time I have to deal with coolant, it's like, okay, I need to get that Freddy.
100%. It's one of them things because I'm very grateful that I actually won it and got to get one sort of pretty much. I mean, I'd only been going sort of 6 to 8 months, I think, when I got it. And yeah, because like you say, I wouldn't have been able to spend that amount of money on like it's a nice to have. I mean, the thing is, it does save so much time. And like you say, if let's say you've got to change your coolant, at the moment, I'm like, no problem at all. I'll filter it out. I haven't got to get wet. I've done it the hard way before at the Whittle Lab. We changed over coolants and we were using, I can't remember what they're called. Actually, I won't even name them because they're not worthy of naming. Because Freddie is the only name in coolant filtration. But no, we emptied 3 tanks out and it took 3 days of filling up these tiny little hoovers, basically. And there was so much mess all over the floor and we couldn't recycle any of it. It was just all... I mean, it wasn't getting filtered as it was getting put out. It was an absolute disaster. So when I did get to use the Freddy, I mean, I mean, the other thing is as well, like which I use it a lot for is, you've just run your part and you've got loads of deep holes or something like that, and you know what it's like. You get your air gun in there, you blow it all out, and then all of a sudden you're wearing it all. But just getting the Freddy in there, suck it all up, and all that coolant, instead of it getting sprayed on the floor, it's actually getting saved. So yeah, I'm a huge, huge fan of the Freddy. So thank you very much to the Freddy crew.
Well,
Yeah,
speaking of them, Freddy Products they wanted me to ask you about your sneakers.
Yes, he said he'd bring this up. Do you have a Lidl's in America? It's a shop, like a supermarket.
If we do, I don't think there's any on my coast, but probably not.
Do you have like Aldi? Do you? Is it Aldi's?
I think we have Aldi's on the East Coast. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So basically, Lidl is basically like, it's the cheapest supermarket you can get. Like, it's the cheapest stuff you get, and they were selling Lidl branded trainers, and I was straight in there to buy them. I was wearing them, and all the UK guys were taking the mick out of me, but I was wearing them for about 6 months straight, as they were the comfiest trainers I've ever had. So yeah, that's the story behind that.
Okay, that makes sense. I get it was one of those, like, I don't know what this question means, but I guess we'll talk about it. Mr. Horrocks also asked if you'll ever have a productive night shift that doesn't involve learning how to rebuild machines. So what's the story behind these?
Well, I mean, which one do you want to hear? I mean, it's been worse in the last month. I've done the most machine repair that I've ever done.
Oh no.
It's been a nightmare. So it started off with, I was having I didn't mention it earlier actually, I've got a Hartford VMC with a 4th axis on it, which has got it's all Mitsubishi control. And I think it's similar to Viper. It's basically a Taiwanese machine. It's all on 3 axis, all boxway, but it's a beast. But it's all boxway, but it's got this weak ass 8,000 RPM spindle, which you can stall by just looking at it, I think. But I was having intermittent issues with that it would all of a sudden just e-stop, and it's giving me this error on the y-axis. Turned out that it was a bad encoder, which just recently got sorted. So it took about a week of the machine being down. But what had actually happened was the coolant had got through the way covers, and I thought on most machines that the motor for the y-axis was like at the back, but this one is at the front, right in the middle, like where all the coolant is constantly dripping down in front of you. It's right there. Yeah, so that had been filled up with coolant somehow. I don't know if the O-ring had gone or whatever, but yeah, so I sourced a new encoder for that, which was great fun. And then yeah, the other debacle was what I mentioned about the lathe destroying itself. But all these things, I mean, I work all kinds of hours. I'm working very often past midnight, and sometimes starting early in the morning. But it seems to be, I'll do a work day, then I'll go home, see my family and the kids, and have a bit of dinner, put the kids to bed, and then I'll come back for the night shift. I think, right, I'm gonna get caught up. I'm gonna, it's gonna be really productive. And then before I know it, so basically we're in this chat together, the Secret Swarf Society, so I'll give them a shout out. But it's a few of the UK machinist lads. And yeah, we all like to take the mick out of each other, but also very, very helpful. So I'm very often in there like, guys, how do I fix this?
Oh no.
When the chuck got destroyed, I didn't even know how to get the chuck off. I'd never dealt with taking a hydraulic chuck off before. I was like, I didn't even know. So what had actually damaged on it was the master jaws that actuate in and out that the top jaws bolt on. It had snapped the whole jaw off, but as it had snapped that off, it snapped sort of the T-slot that they get bolted into. Have you done much turning in your career, Dylan?
A little bit. My last job, we had, I don't know, 10 lathes or something like that. And so I've done a few jobs on those. Not as much as I'd like, and definitely not enough to be any kind of expert on it.
Do you see a lathe in your future, or I've heard you talk, you'd like a 5-axis next, but
yeah, I think that's where our money is best spent for our current customer base. Eventually we'll get a lathe, I'm sure, or some kind of mill turn or something like that. But right now,
straight to the mill turn.
Well, yeah,
the lathe, go straight to the mill turn.
We'll see what the future holds. But like right now, I have enough lathe shops I can sub work out to that I really trust, that I'd much rather just give them business and focus on what I do best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. Yeah, definitely.
But that sounds absolutely terrifying. Like I've seen what you're talking about, like on the chucks, and like I can't imagine something like that breaking.
Yeah, the chuck's sitting over there on the shelf of shame at the moment. That shelf's getting a bit full, actually.
Well, I'm glad you were able to get back up and running with both machines, because that's I Brad and I were actually just talking about this yesterday, like how we loved our Kitamura. We were so happy with it, but we were so happy to see it leave, because like, especially when it was our only machine, there was the constant fear of like, oh, this could go down at any moment. Like this, it's old, it's got issues. We know that it has issues. Like this is our lifeblood, and it could just like all of a sudden be down for an indeterminate amount of time.
100%. I mean, three of my machines are 90s machines. So yeah, I'm living that fear every day. At least I've got a bit of redundancy now. I've got 2 mills and 2 lathes. So if one, hopefully they don't all go at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I think luck and statistics are on your side there. So
yeah,
should be all right.
definitely.
Yeah. When it was our only machine, it was like, man, because we had it go down, twice or 3 times over the years. And of course, it doesn't go down when you're not doing anything. It goes down when you're in the middle of an order. So
100%.
It was always the worst. And yeah, it's tough. It's really tough.
What sort of stuff went wrong with the Kitamura? I've never seen one, so I don't know. It wasn't a horizontal machine, was it? That was a vertical, was it?
Yeah, that was a vertical. It was always, well, not always. So let's see. The first 2 times were, I think it was like capacitors or something on the main board going bad. And so we, like, it would go into this crazy error state and not be able to do anything. And, you could restart it and it would get through all of the safety checks. And then, 1 minute to 3 hours, somewhere in that span, it would shut off again. And so you couldn't use it reliably. And so we sent it out to a third-party company in the US, and they said they fixed it and, reflowed the board or whatever. And then it worked for maybe 6 months, and then it died again. Same exact thing. And then we found out that we could send the board directly to Yaskawa, who owns Yaznak, or who bought the rights to it or whatever. And they'll repair any board for 50% the cost of a new board. Like, no matter what's wrong with it. Like, it could be literally 1 2-cent capacitor that they have to reflow or replace. And it's, I think for our board, it was like $2,000 or something like that to repair it. But it meant that we were back up and running, and it worked nonstop through the remainder of our ownership of it. And then let's see, another one was that we thought we had replaced all of the batteries for like the ATC, APC, all, because everything was absolute encoders. And it turns out we had missed the one for the tool changer. Right. There was one that was like kind of hidden behind a cover on one of the boards, and that went out one day, and our tool changer lost its home position and wouldn't change tools. And that took, I want to say 3 or 4 days for us to figure out. And I ended up finding some super obscure YouTube video that had like 20 views from some random Yaznak repair place that talked about, it wasn't even for our machine. It was just for the spin or the servo and servo drive that controlled our ATC. And I ended up you have to like unplug one of the plugs and short something on the servo itself for a couple minutes so that it resets. And then you have to tell the machine to tell it to reset and like reset its home position. And finally we figured it out. But like that one was truly terrifying, because for us, when we had looked into it, when the board went out, to have Yaznak out here, it was like $2,000 before they even looked at the machine, because they're in California. So it was, a flight, a rental car, a hotel room, a per diem, plus, well, I think it was 150 or $200 an hour once they got here. And so I was like, this is going to be a $5,000 bill or something like that by the end of it.
That's mad.
Yeah. And the worst part when you're working on an old machine like that is you know so much about it. So you've spent hours troubleshooting already, and they're going to come out and do the exact same thing and waste your money and time doing exactly.
Yeah, they're not going to listen to you, are they? If you go, I've checked this out, and the other go, well, I need to check it myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the only physical thing we ever had go wrong was I wasn't even at the shop. Brad was there and I was at work, and he sends me a picture, and I think it was the APC. I don't remember if there was like a power fluctuation or if it had lost its batteries as well or something, but it threw one of the pallets into the machine and missed, like it like rotated, I think what happened is it rotated halfway, and so the pegs of the bed were not in their locating place yet, and
Yeah.
then it tried to rip the pallets apart, and and literally dumped one of those pallets into the machine off of the locating studs. And so I like left work immediately and went and basically just had to like get in the machine and manhandle this full table back
Yeah, how
onto
did you get it out? Would you just use your muscles and gaze?
Yeah, pretty much. Like Brad was on the outside of the machine. I like got inside the machine and straddled the y-axis and just kind of manhandled it up. Thankfully, it was a small 30 taper machine. If this was a 40 taper or a 40 by 20, there's no way I could have done it. And it was at it was at the limits of me hurting myself as it was, and I barely
100%.
got it back up on there. So yeah.
So was it a two-way pallet changer on there? Was it? Is that what it was? It just two that swapped around? Or?
Yeah, when they come together and rotate 180, so it wasn't like one of the Mightyco ones where it shoves them in sideways and then grabs the next one. These ones actually just rotated, kind of like a Brother R450 or R650 does. I don't know if you've seen those, where they're basically a big fourth axis and a table on one side, table on the other. And so this one, they would both lift up, rotate around, and then drop back into the machine.
Right.
But yeah, that was one of the worst texts I've ever got, because it was like zero explainer yet. It was just the picture, and I just see the bed in the machine.
Picture. That's harsh.
Yeah.
That's
and
harsh.
then and I respond back, what the hell is that? And he's like, oh man, I don't know what's happened. Like the thing just like freaked out and yanked the bed off. I was like, okay, I'm leaving work. I'll be right there. And yeah, thankfully, it could have been so much worse. Like I've seen people crash horizontals that have very similar attachment for the pallets and shear the attachment points. And like if that had happened, I don't know that we could have even got one or repaired it. So thank goodness that didn't happen.
Do you know where that machine is now? Is it still going?
I assume so. Yeah, we sold it to a used machinery dealer that said they sold it to a shop that had a bunch of Kitamuras and needed it for some kind of large production run. And I think it's one of those no news is good news cases, because we never heard anybody complain about anything.
Well, it's out of your hand. It's sort of one of them with machines. I mean, within reason, once you've sold it, that is the gamble with buying used machines. I mean, so you got your, I don't know what it's called, the dual column machine. You got that new, did you? The Brother?
Yeah, the F600.
That was new, and the one before that, the first. Is that the first Brother you had before that? Was that new?
Technically, both of our newer Brothers are somewhat used. The S700 had been an IMTS machine, and actually, I remember seeing it. It was used in I don't remember what brand it was, but it was some brand that had either an electric or a coolant-driven spindle, and so it had 100 hours of cutting time on it, but almost no hours of spindle on time, because they were just running a.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So basically been warming up for 100 hours.
Right, exactly. And then the F600 was the demo F600 in the Chicago office for 2 years. So, it had been used. The table had, some dings in it and stuff.
Really?
Oh, yeah. That, because I think it's one of 3 in the US. So they used it, Brother used it to test the machine and see if it matched up to the Japan Brothers claims. And, they did a lot of customer demos on it and things like that. But yeah, it's been great so far.
So the Brothers, are they all made in Japan, or is it?
They are, except for there are special ones made in China for the Chinese market, because Apple uses them, all the big Foxconn, things like that. They've got fleets of them, but they're specific to the Chinese market, and they're not, unless you go through some weird means, they're not resold outside of China.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, and then our oldest Brother, which is the TC, we got from actually Dennis Rathy.
Yes.
So
I watched his shop tour the other week from John Saunders.
So he mentions in there real briefly that they sold their original Brothers off to a couple of instant machinists, and we got one of his, and it's 22 years old now and still making good parts and running.
I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah,
it looks in good shape.
Yeah, it's great. It's really a testament to just how dead simple they are. Brad and I were joking the other day that inside the Kitamura cabinet, if you took all of the electronics, you could probably build 5 other Brothers, because you
Yeah.
look inside a Brother cabinet and you're like, oh, there's like enough room to climb in here. Like it's
Yeah.
such, they're like, the drives are so tiny, all the electronics are so tiny, there's so much unused room. It's really nice.
Do you have like, so you said for the Kitamura, for the Yazunak, it would have been a lot of money to get someone out to look at it. Have you got people close to you that can repair that? Should, touch wood, hopefully it doesn't, but should anything go wrong?
Yeah. Yamazin, who's the Brother distributor in the US, they're fantastic. That's one reason that we bought the new Brothers, is that when we got our old Brother, we needed to upgrade the memory board to the newest rev and then, reload all the parameters. And our Yamazin office was like Johnny on the spot, getting us the parts, getting people out to do all the work, and, got it done super quickly and efficiently. And because of that, we were like, oh, well, if they're going to service a 20-year-old machine like this, surely they'll service a new machine even better. So that's been really nice. And the machine came from Dennis with a brand new spindle in box. Like, I guess they had bought a spare, and so
You had a spare spindle with it.
Yeah, we still have it. Still as far as I know, the original spindle.
That's a nice peace of mind, isn't it? Because it's God forbid you do anything. It's just there. Swap it straight in.
Exactly. Well, and anytime I have to do parts that I'm like, yeah, this is really sketchy, I'm like, put it in the TC. Worst case, we got to replace a spindle.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the Brother machines, because they're not very common over here. I know of there's a place, CTPE on Instagram, they've got some Brothers. What is the control on a Brother? Is it their own control?
Yeah, it's their own control. From what I understand, it's based on Linux CNC. But yes, since the age of our first machine, they've been building their own controls. So the right. TC is the A0. We don't have a B0 control. Both of our Speedios are C0 controls, and then they just came out. All the new machines that they just released are D0 controls with touchscreen and fanciness and all that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do they have memory? Like, they're not like Fanuc, where you have like 3 kilobytes? Like,
they are
like 3 of my machines here.
Better than Fanuc. They are still not like, Heidenhain or Siemens. Like, there's no hard drives on them. They do. I think the D0 has like a few gigs of memory. I want to say that our Speedios have, tens of megabytes, if not hundreds of megabytes.
That's loads. That is if you're talking megabytes, you're talking right. You're laughing.
Yeah, right. Our Kitamura was 512 kilobytes, and like that was limiting for sure. I'm sure you know.
So what did you do? Did you drip feed to that? Because I've got I struggled with the Hartford mill with the Mitsubishi on there. I struggled. Shout out to RC Kev, another UK machinist. He lent me his micro DNC sort of drip feed box, and now I can just plug in a USB and it will run it straight off the USB, which is absolutely lovely. But yeah, it's the only way I can run a program on there, really.
Oh wow. To be honest, usually I was very good about getting efficient code out of Fusion. Like using lots of smoothing, lots of, all that stuff. If there was parts that like the Autodesk Cam Challenge parts that we made, that was on the Kitamura, all the machine logos, those I ended up having to just load multiple programs to finish, because we never really got a great workflow going for DNC to that machine. And we probably should have, but we just didn't really need to most of the time. And then when we needed to, we just broke up the programs.
Yeah, it's one of them things, isn't it? It's like, you should sit down and figure it out, but you've got parts to make. Like, you need to just get on with it.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's a really tough position to be. Like, I'm in that position right now. I've got more work than we really can handle, but I also have all this laying stuff just sitting there waiting for me, because I have to pull both vices off the S700 and put the laying stud pattern in the bottom of them. And It's like, man, I don't have time. Like, that takes down 2 machines pretty much. Like, I have to take the vices off the S700 and then I have to put them in the F600 to machine the pattern. And it's like, all right, I need to do this, but also I don't have time to do this.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I thought that when I went full time that I'd have all this extra time to just get all these things wrapped up. But I mean, the work is just increased and increased. And
which is a good thing. It's a good problem.
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. It's when I've got no work and I've done all my odd jobs, and then I'll be getting worried. But yeah, it's definitely hard.
Yeah. Well, and Brad's on full time now as of last Thursday, I think was his first full time day.
Nice.
So I'm hoping now that he's there, it'll free me up to kind of do some more of that higher level stuff. I can be like, hey, can you keep running this machine? I'm going to get this done. And then like I'll run his machine while he can get something done. And we've been doing a lot of cleaning and reorganizing. And I'm hopeful that we maybe have a period of a month or two to get some stuff done, before people realize that we have more capacity and dump more on us. We'll see. Let's see.
Yeah, so you're obviously early doors of having Brad in you. So congrats to imaginary Brad for going full time. But what's it like sharing your workshop? Because obviously you've been in there full time. I know you've obviously shared it part time, but I think you said on previous episodes that you guys would sort of tag team. Like one would go in like in the morning or whatever, because wasn't he working nights?
Yeah,
or strange hours. So how have you found it so far? Is he in your way? Is what I'm asking.
No, not really. It is weird. Like I've realized that like I've gotten very used to being just like super quiet and not talking to anybody. And so like now there's somebody there all the time, but it's really nice to have, a friend there to talk to. And, if I'm running stuff that I'm not super sure of, like he's got years and years more experience running stainless than I do.
Right.
That's all he did. And so like,
I've learned
it's
that
been
the
so
hard
nice.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's nice to be like, hey, I'm drilling 316. Do these like parameters sound logical to you? And just a, quick double check is really nice to have.
100%. I mean, oftentimes I'm in here and I'm doing stuff, and then you just sort of all go, and then you're snapping drills, you're breaking emos. I mean, I'm speaking for me here, and yeah, I think working at previous jobs, like if someone would come over and go, oh, why are you doing it like that for? And that'd make you sort of go, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do it that way, or yeah, this is a sketchy setup. So yeah, it'd be nice to have someone to sort of check you on that sort of thing.
Yeah. But I think he came out at the perfect time because we are just about to implement, all of these sweeping changes to my workflow and make it our workflow. Like, adding the laying, I really want to set up the container method, like Rob Lockwood has that talk from AU about. So I'm glad that he's coming on now as I'm implementing these things so that we can implement them together and make them our workflow rather than just me being like, this is how we're doing it. And him being like, but I don't like this part of it. Like, I think this is stupid.
Yeah, 100%. So what sort of changes are you doing? So you're bringing in the Lang, because you had the Delta stuff.
Yeah.
What made you swap over to Lang? Or is it just on a different machine that you're running the Lang?
No, I'm putting the Lang on. Since I want to go full 5-axis and stuff, I think that the Lang provides us a little more uniformity across every machine type that we're going to have. From what I have heard, Orange is no longer making the subplates, and so it's not like I can get another one for the F600.
Right.
So I think it makes more sense to go to a uniform system, holistically on everything. And then I really I like my Delta Vices from Orange, but they're fairly big. And maybe the new gen that they've been shown. But I have like a model. I'm making a single-sided trunnion for the Lang vise I bought, and I have all three models. I have the Lang, I have the Shunk, and then I have the Orange in there side by side, and you can see like it's a significant size difference and weight difference between them.
100%. I'm a huge. I know I'm obviously trying to start selling my own vices, but I'm a huge fan of the Lang. I mean, it's really tough to beat. I mean, I've back in the day, I was using sort of not even. I used to think a Kurt vice was like the best you could get, but there was these vices that come with the machines, the XYZ machines. I've got one here actually that does sometimes get used, but I mean, just a clunky old. Just imagine the roughest old machine vice you can think of. It was that. So yeah, when we went from the Kurt and then onto the Lang 0 point, it's absolutely beautiful. So have you got the Lang vices already? Did you get the Avanti soft jaws? Or?
So right now I just have the hard jaws, and I have a 77 110 vice that's going to sit. So I have a 52 millimeter base that's going to be built into the 90-degree trunnion, so that I can turn the vice 90 degrees, either way that fits the part the best.
4+1.
Yeah, exactly. And then I've got the 96 millimeter on the fourth, and then I've got a 4-station 96 millimeter that's going to go on the table.
Nice.
Yeah, and then once that is proven out and we have the workflow dialed, we'll get another 96 millimeter 4-station for the F as well, and then possibly even just a single 96 millimeter plate for the TC if we still have it at that point.
So you're considering losing that machine, are you? We're getting a bit juicy details here. So is that going to make way for the next 5-axis that you've obviously got your eye on?
We're going to kind of see where the rest of the year goes. Now that Brad's on full time, and that we need to see how much revenue we can generate. We kind of want to go to IMTS and see what's new out there. I think I've talked about it on the podcast. I've got my eye on a C250 from Hermle. If maybe I'm also interested to see what else Brother brings to the table this year. So we're not really sure where this is all going to go yet. I know that we need to replace the TC because we have a lot of parts that need a ton of 3D machining or probing or something like that, and the TC is just too old for that stuff. And it's worth still some good money because it's a great mill, and we've not only kept it up but improved it since we bought it. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of wait and see. Like if we get anything big that's not another Brother, we're gonna have to move shops, and really I think we're gonna have to move shops anyway. So I have to factor that into kind of the whole plan. I mean, that's probably $5,000 or $6,000 just to move, not including
I'm literally
added rent.
I've had the lease through for me to move into a new unit because, like I said, where I am, it's sort of shared. My bit's mine, but the bit out the front is a storage for someone else. And I mean, I haven't even got a toilet here, which is, I'm not too far from my house. It's about 10-minute drive, but I tell you, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I'm eyeing up the cost of moving, and honestly, it took me basically a year to find somewhere that in my town that I'd be able to move into. The only other places were like 40,000 square feet, and I'm not quite there yet. So what's it like where you are for finding shop space?
There's not a ton. There's a block of units that we've been looking at for a long time that I think is probably where we'll end up moving. They're just much more expensive than where we are now. Like we really lucked into a place that's a great price and decent facilities. Like we all share a bathroom, which sucks. I don't have any in-suite water, so like I can't wash parts.
Same.
So you know the struggles. The other but we pay I think $700 a month or something like that, which is great.
Yeah, that's quite cheap. Yeah.
And then the place we're looking at is like 3,000 square feet, so 3 times the space. It's got some air conditioned offices in the front, so we can set up like inspection and shipping and all that. But it's I think $2,500 a month, so it's a big step up as far as our monthly costs.
Yeah, so before I found this place, the only other available space was 3,200 square feet, and like you say, it had a new roof. It's got solar panels on it, all LED lighting. There's like 2 offices, but the price of it was just about the same sort of money. And then they want 6 months deposit up front. I mean, what are the sort of standards for where what's it like over there for deposits and stuff?
I'm not really sure. I want to say we only did a month for our current place, but that was also like 6 years ago. And now real estate's insane. They can kind of do whatever they want now because 100%. What are you going to do? Like,
because it's in short supply everywhere.
Yeah. So I'm both looking forward to and not looking forward to moving. Like I would love some more space. We are really tightly packed in where we are right now, but again, it just means ballooning that monthly break-even point even more, which is never a fun thing.
Oh no, 100%. Yeah, so
I mean that is one thing that's nice what I've done. Yeah, I've got older machines, but I've paid for all of them except the first one. I've paid for them outright. Got 2 of them from auction, and one, which was a smoke and deal, the Hitachi Seiki, was through for a friend. That was actually the UK machinist. One of his old work buddies was selling it. But yeah, no, it's nice not to have a big payment over your head. Yeah, because I mean, I don't know what you guys like, but cash flow is my biggest struggle. Like at the moment, I know I've got a lot of my customers were paying me sort of when work was done. Then they've moved to like sort of net 30. One of them's on net 60, which is just so annoying because it's like I've done the work, I've paid out for everything, and now I'm just sort of waiting to be paid for it. So yeah, it's not fun.
No, we had a customer, a fairly big customer of ours. We thought we were on net 30 payment terms with them, and I think they went through an internal like purchasing change or something, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't see it in the original documents, but Now we're on net 45. And I was like, well, where'd that extra 15 days come from? Like
Why net
I was
45?
I don't know. We had a few unpaid invoices, and I reached out to their person, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on with this?" She's like, "Oh, well, you've still got 15 days left on, or it was like 12 days or something like that on the terms." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I just misread the document. Thanks."
Yeah,
But
no, they've
it
done a
was
sly one
frustrating.
there.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. It's not worth it to really dive into it, but it was like, oh, that's interesting. I thought it was net 30.
Yeah, I mean, you've expecting that money to come in. You're like, right, I'm gonna be a bit more comfortable, or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I've definitely been there.
Yeah. One, it's tough. Like as you start getting bigger jobs, you've got to lay out more money for material and all that. And, that's immediate. Or, maybe you've got terms with your material supplier if you're lucky, but it's not,
Yeah,
it's tough. It can definitely be tough.
yeah. And what are material prices like for you guys at the minute? Because here it's just, I mean, steel and aluminium are just like literally double. If you can get it, if you can actually even get it within the next few months, it just seems to be double the price, which is not ideal.
It is pretty crazy. I think we're fairly lucky in that most of our customers are willing to pay for expedite stuff. So like I buy a lot of my material from McMaster, which I know is charging me 2x what my local supplier.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, sure. But like McMaster is next day for us. So like I know tomorrow, if I order something today, tomorrow I come into the shop, it's going to be there. It's going to be right. Or if it's not, they'll make it right within a day. Like I'm paying for the reliability more than anything, because one of our local suppliers is probably the worst business I've ever dealt with.
But you're doing sort of small run stuff, aren't you? So if you were doing production jobs, that you probably wouldn't be able to factor that cost in. But if you're doing sort of smaller stuff, because you do a lot of that, what are you doing? A lot of aluminium and stainless and titanium.
And it's
stuff.
onesie twosie stuff. It's I mean, like 8 parts is a lot for me from most of my customers. Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I sent out an order last week that was 5 or 6 part numbers, all of a different material, and all I think one piece each.
Right.
So that's
it sounds fun though, because I get some jobs in and it's like, yeah, okay, I'm done with it. Like it's nothing exciting. It's like a turned top hat or a plate, a block with holes, and it's just like, right, okay, give me something a bit more fancy now.
Right. Well, the last question. Oh, actually, we had one that was just a shout out from Turbo Sally saying, shout out from a guy across the pond with almost the same exact machine as yours. So he was just, I guess, he's got the same as your Hartford.
Hartford's 850. They're not very common, these machines. Well, yeah, I guess they weren't very popular. They're definitely sort of a lower end machine, but it's paid for itself quite a few times over. So I'm quite. Besides paying for that encoder, which wasn't fun, but. Yeah, she's very, very nice. Nice to have a 4th axis, because I went from having full 5 axis. I mean, that DMU at my disposal, and before that, sort of the mini mill with the 5 axis trunnion on there was sort of my baby. And then going back to 3 axis was like, wish I could just do this in one and done.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I can sort of do it now on the 4th axis, but I haven't figured out actually on this machine the simultaneous 4th axis. I can't figure out if it's a parameter setting or if it's my post maybe, but I could do positional on the 4th axis absolutely fine, but anytime like I was trying to do a wrapped 2D toolpath, and it was a sort of just deburring a radial, or what would that be? Radial axial slot, a slot around the diameter, and it goes to the start position, and it just does a full 360 of the spin, the trunnion. Sorry.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Yeah, I can't figure out. I think what it's doing is it's only wants to move in one direction, the trunnion. Because I've noticed when it does a positional move, instead of going 90, it'll go like 270, or it'll go the other way. But yeah, I'm not too comfortable with messing with the parameters on these machines, because I mean I can get it to run the code, and I'm happy with that.
Right.
Let's just stick to that.
Can you MDI all 4 axes, or is it maybe just an indexer?
I've not tried that actually.
Because that would tell you at least if it's positional only, or if it's actually full 4th.
Right, so just put some code in the MDI to just run all 4 axes at once. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I'll give that a go. Nice one.
Well, the last question from Karakuri PGH, which is actually, I wanted to get into this, was all about what makes your FirmVise different. He says it looks very similar to like a fifth axis B562, but with a nice flush cut middle screw bracket. So what makes it different? What made you get into 0-point work holding? How did you come up with a design? All that stuff.
Yeah, so at the where I worked at my last job at the Whittle Lab, we were, we're very free to, you could do the work, but you're very much welcome to play around. And I think I don't know if it was the last episode or the episode before, you were saying that an employer letting their staff make their own stuff and play around is a good thing because it helps you learn. And I started playing around with the idea. We had the fifth axis vice on the trunnion of the XYZ Minimum 560, and the first design I did was pretty similar to a fifth axis vice. It was sort of T slots and with the way the jaws go in and out. Yeah, it was. I actually put up I remember I put up an Instagram post of me having 3D printed like a prototype version of it, and there was like 4 comments in a row like, yeah, fifth axis copy, yeah, fifth axis thief or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. They're right. They are right. That is definitely basically a fifth axis vice. So I took it as constructive criticism and sort of moved on to I was like, what can I do differently and what don't I like about the fifth axis vice? And we were definitely getting jaw lift. And so the jaws would sort of flex back when you were holding in the gripper teeth. And I sort of started looking at ways where I could try get rid of that issue. And I ended up, after lots of playing around and prototyping, the ways that so you got the twin lead screw that's held in the middle of the base by a sort of, I call it the lead key, but it's a very, very close fit that holds that in place. And then you've got the jaw trucks that slide over that slide in the base and pulled together by the twin lead screw. And on my vice, it's actually a dovetail. So rather than being T slots, it rides in. It's dovetail ways. And what I figured out basically is that you've got way more surface area, basically resisting that upward force of when you've got the jaws flexing back, and also made the jaw carry as much. It also allows that to be way wider and way thicker. While also, what I also wanted to do, because we had issues with Z clearance on the 5-axis trunnion, the Nikon trunnion, because it's just a standard VMC. It's got about 500 millimeters travel in Z. So when you've got the trunnion on there, you already lost basically half your travel. So, I mean, there were some jobs where it was like 10 or 12 millimeters to, like, you couldn't fit your tool in, sort of thing. So I wanted to go as low profile as possible. So yeah, so that's what I sort of ended up with that design. You can have it way lower down. And another reason why I really wanted to do the dovetail ways is I don't like T-slot cutters. Some people just have things they don't like. Like some people, they just don't like loops. I just do not like a T-slot cutter. So I ended up cutting the ways in the machine. I did it on that 5-axis trunnion just by tilting the axis over. It's a 30-degree angle on there. So tilting it over, machining it with an end mill, basically, with a finishing end mill.
Oh wow! But
the reason why I sort of wanted to do the vice was because I'd be honest, I'd started getting into like Robin Renzetti videos and like Stefan and on YouTube, and sort of I hadn't done anything. Like the closest tolerance I'd really get was like a bearing fit or something like that. So it's like half a thou, and I really wanted to get into doing something at the sort of surface grinder level where you're chasing more like microns. So that's what sort of prompted me to want to do a vice in the first place. And then with the 0-point base, the first one I did was, I didn't actually machine that. The first design I did was, again, it was very similar to the fifth axis base. But no, in the question, he said it looks like a fifth axis vice, but I think it looks more like the Lang, some of the Lang versions, because I've got the sloped sides. Yeah. Again, that's to help in that sort of 4/5 axis environment, so you can basically get the base out of the way of your tool holder. But yeah, no, the 0-point base, what I've done is I've not used a twin lead screw. I've used a bit like the Flux work holding vices, where he's got just basically a bolt that pulls the 2 jaws together, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. Around the center. That's basically what I've done for my 0-point base. Yeah, because making a twin lead screw, I know I've got to make one for the vices anyway, but to have the threads bang on timed in the set is really difficult. I mean, I was trying to do it at the Whittle Lab where we had a prototrack lathe and some manual lathes, and it was really hard, to be honest with you, just to get it right. If I could probably do it now with the machines I've got, with just doing a left and a right hand threading tool and doing it in the same setup. But yeah, no, that prompted me to just use a bolt, and it's got basically some wedges inside that are actuated by the bolt, and springs sort of push it back as well. But overall, it should be a more cost-effective way of manufacturing 0-point bases. But as I'm doing the job shop work as well at the moment, I'm just too sort of they've been pushed to the side a little bit while I sort of keep the money coming in from the job shopping.
I know the feeling for sure.
Yeah.
So are you
It's
sticking
tricky.
with the 96 millimeter, 52 millimeter kind of pattern?
Yeah, I think because obviously you've got the sort of some 0-point, like the orange one that just do a big pull stud in the middle, but I think I definitely prefer having 4 studs, because you're equaling out that clamping pressure. Because with the single point ones, you're clamping just from the middle, and yeah, I know they are a big stud and they obviously work, but yeah, I'll tell you what I really like about the Lang and the fifth axis is when you've got the grid pattern, is when you can have one position there, which would be 96 millimeter spacing, or you can overhang like 2 plates, can't you? So if you've got 2 single plates, you could be in the middle, so you could have 2 vices on either side, or you could put one in the center. There's just a lot of flexibility that way, which I really like. So yeah, I've gone for 96 millimeter spacing, because I think that's pretty much the industry standard now for the 4 studs.
Yeah, definitely. So is yours going to be interchangeable with Lang and fifth axis studs if people want to use it on their bases?
Yeah, because they all use,
I think it's M12.
was it 6? Yeah, I think it's an M10 thread, but it's like a 16 millimeter diameter boss, isn't it, that locates in there. So yeah, that'll be standard on the vices. So yeah, you can interchange, or you can use my studs. Eventually, I'm doing the vices first, and then we'll come back and get the 0-point bases out there, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, that's really exciting. I look forward to seeing where that all goes, because I really like the dovetail idea. I know that everybody has their spin on anti-jaw lift, and I don't think anybody's doing that, and I look forward to seeing how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool. I mean, really, with the business, the whole job shop stuff is really, ultimately, I wanna just sell products. I mean, from one, I enjoy sort of designing. I mean, what I really love about machining is the fixture design, the work holder design. That's what I really enjoy, and then getting some beautiful parts at the end of it. But just the freedom to design things and design things for manufacturability, which is sort of cooking that into the design. Having worked with academics that just they're worried about their design being what's right for what it needs to be, obviously, but they've got no consideration for actually how it needs to be made. I mean, we've all experienced it, haven't we, with a 1 millimeter fillet in the bottom of a deep pocket or something. It's just like, no.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and if you're lucky, you could talk them out of it, and if you're not, you're like, well, it's just going to be a lot of time. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that brings me on to shop news and new things. Are there any other, products you're working on, or any other machinery purchases or sell-offs that you're doing, or anything like that?
Shop news. So I've literally just got a new machine in, which you can see behind me, which is a Colchester CNC 350. That's the manual lathes, Colchester manual lathes. They're good British machines from way back when, but they do some CNC machines as well. So that's a slant bed lathe with a disgusting FANUC control on it, which has been, I mean, my Hitachi Seiki's got a Yasnak control on it, which is pretty similar to FANUC, but it's still better than the FANUC.
I would agree. My Yasnak on the Kitamura was leaps and bounds over the same time period FANUC.
Yeah, because these are they're pretty much the same age. I think there's a couple of years between them. They're both older than me, I think. But yeah, so yeah, got that machine in. So that, I mean, I've got it roughly leveled. I've just literally run the first job on it at the moment, which is a silly job. So it's stainless steel tube, 16 millimeter diameter. So it's at about 5/8 diameter with a 1.2 millimeter wall thickness. And my lathe travel is about like 350 millimeters. And the parts are 541 millimeters. They literally just got to be turned and parted off. So what I'm doing is I'm starting off turning and chamfering the front, then bring in the bar puller, pull it out 180 millimeters, clamp it, pull it, then go back again, and then I'm doing 3 different pulls to pull it out to 541 millimeters, and then parting it off.
Oh,
So I've got another. I think I've done about 80 of those so far. So I've got another few more to run.
you're making a little faux Swiss lathe out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Great first job to do on the machine.
Hey, you know what? It can only get, at least more engaging after this, right?
Oh, I'm going to run some spaces on it next. I'm going to have lots of fun with those.
But
Yeah, the only other news really is, like I said earlier, is moving the shop, and I also will be taking on an employee, not in the next few months, but I think the plan is to start for the new year. I'm going to employ my father-in-law. Actually, he works at a foundry, and he did a tool making apprenticeship back in what would that have been, the late 70s. Back when it was real machining. But no, he wants to change of pace, and I definitely need another pair of hands, because I'm sure you know what it's like wearing many hats, trying to do invoicing, quotes, cleaning, and then on top of that machining, trying to have a life as well, which don't really have much of at the moment. It'd be nice to sort of be able to get more done, and hopefully then add some more machines as we get in the new space, because we've got more. Well, I'll have more power then, because I've got 4 machines here wired into a 32 amp supply.
Oh, wow. And I thought I had it bad.
Yeah. So what have you got in your space at the minute?
I've got 100 amps, and I'm
Right.
technically at the limit of it. Because
Right.
each brother takes 30 amps supposedly, and then our compressor takes 30 something, at full bore.
Yeah, so that's nice. I was, for the last 2 years, I've been running a piston compressor in the corner of the workshop, and I've just got myself a Kaiser screw compressor.
Oh, congrats.
Dude, it is just amazing. Absolutely amazing. It just sits there. It's not even in here, it's sort of in the front bit as well, so I just can't hear anything now. I mean, I've turned all the machines off to do this podcast, and it's so quiet in here right now. It's strange.
Yeah, I know. I know those feels, because we had a piston compressor for the first 4 years, and man, talk about a quality of life increase when you get rid of that noise and that pounding all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you think when you get started, it's just like getting the minimum in to get started. Like, do you know what I mean? And then I luckily got this off an auction, and I paid a good price for it. It came with there were 2 lots from the same auction with the lathe, so it sort of made sense to get both. But yeah, when you're looking at what a screw compressor is new, it's big money. And yeah, when you get started, you can't. Well, you can if you've got the money, but if you
Right.
if you haven't, you got to make do with what you got.
Yeah. No, I mean, our compressor made us a lot of money. I can't complain about it, but I'm so glad it's gone.
Yeah, because I had some points where I'd never really considered how important air is in a machine shop. Like, the compressor died, and I had to go and emergency buy another smaller one. It was just absolute panic station. You think you're worried about the machines breaking down, then you think, the compressor's gone. Then I was on tender hooks. If the little one was only a 50-litre tank on it, so that was running pretty much non-stop.
Oh,
so yeah, it's nice to just know that's gonna hopefully keep going.
Yeah, I hear John Saunders talking about buying a second screw compressor and having the backup, and I'm like, yeah, when we move and have a little bit more space, I would not mind doing that at all.
100%. Yeah. If you've got a lot of machines as well, I mean, it's just imagine them all sitting waiting because your compressor isn't working. How much money you'd be losing, especially in for Saunders' case, he's running production all day, every day sort of thing. It's be a lot of lost money.
Yeah. The motor went out on our piston compressor once and took us down for a few days, and I want to say we were lucky and found one on Craigslist or something locally, and we're able to go pick it up. But yeah, it was oh, this is really stupid to be taken down by I think it was one of the capacitors, the startup capacitors, and I was okay, so a $5 capacitor just took down an entire shop for 3 days because we didn't have an idea of what to do next. So yeah, it's tough.
100%.
Well, that brings me to the last question I ask every guest, which is, what did you research this week? And it can be machining related, it can be, food related, it can be anything.
Don't talk to me about food. Since I've put on about 3 stone since doing FirmWorx. I was at my slimmest, and then I've just receded back to being Fat Boy Josh. So, no, definitely not researching any food.
Just eating it.
Yeah, so I've got two sons at the moment. We've got another baby on the way. It's going to be a little girl. So we've been looking into new prams and stuff like that. But no, the only other stuff. Yeah, thank you, man. Just means I'm going to be even busier. But the only other thing I've been researching really is figuring out the bloody FANUC control. I've been finding many old forum posts, and I've had to George Lister Engineering, another UK head, helping me out. I've been pestering him for some advice. But yeah, what I really want to do is back up the parameters on all the machines. I don't think I have to worry on the Siemens so much, but on the Mitsubishi and the Yasnak and the FANUC, the Colchester machine, that is actually the older Colchester's got absolute position on it, which I was surprised by. But as you said, if the batteries go, you're in a bad place.
Yeah. Make sure to change those frequently, even when you don't think you need to.
Yeah,
it's worth it.
Yeah, so that, and just researching into how much it's all going to cost me moving, and trying to figure out the logistics of actually moving. Like, obviously, I want minimum downtime, but there's going to be some downtime, isn't there? But it's like, can I get the machines all moved in one day? Can I get the machines wired up in like another day? Can it be done in like a weekend, or is it going to be a week-long thing? I honestly don't know yet. So, yeah.
I didn't even think about that. But yeah, I'm going to have to be very strategic on that, and, have them, maybe I'll pre-wire machines, lay out wherever we go next, and then pre-wire so that they're just ready to be terminated at the machine or something. Because
so that's what I'd like to do that, but I've also paid for all the wiring in here, all the the drops to each machine. I'm just going to take them with me. I don't want to pay, because that's a few. I mean, here it costs. I mean, it was like £200 per machine basically for the parts.
Right.
So I just for the wire, the cable, and the little breaker bit that goes in the box, and the isolator and everything else.
Oh yeah.
And that's without paying the electrician. I'm lucky I've got a buddy who does it for sort of mates rates. But yeah, it'd be very nice to just have everything wired up, all the air hooked up, and just ready to just get it in. But I don't think I've got that luxury.
Yeah. Now you got me thinking. Now I got some research to do.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the podcast. It's been really great I know we've talked over DM and stuff, but it's been really cool to get to chat with you and kind of put a face to the name and all that.
Man, I've been listening since episode 1. I've been listening since. So
no, thank you for giving us good machinist content every week, because you never seem to miss an episode. And I mean, I started off listening to Business and Machining back in the day, and then a few more have popped up. Some of the more sort of corporate ones I don't really listen to, but that obviously Machinist Therapy Hotline, when they bothered to do an episode, that's obviously a favourite. But Within Tolerance is 100% my favourite machining podcast, because getting to hear all everyone's different stories and different experiences, and everyone seems to be in a similar sort of, everyone's doing different things, but everyone's got the same sort of problem. So it's good. It's very cool to hear. So thank you for doing it, mate. And thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. And real quick, Patreon thank yous. Thank you to Silas Hart and Andrew Poet for joining the Patreon. Helps me do episodes like this and have excellent people like Josh on. And thanks everyone for listening. I'll be back next week.